Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 224. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where we're talking about painting, modeling, and wargame experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 videos a week. Ow! Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, I participated in another RTT, a Rogue Trader tournament for Warhammer 40,000, and I got some Warhammer 40,000 figures finished. This will be my 3rd Rogue Trader tournament that I have participated in, and once again, I came in dead last, but not as badly as I usually do. Usually it's dead last by a mile. This time, I just scored the fewest points, but not by a huge, incredible margin. And I almost won a game. I had one game that was 90 to 80. It was really, really close. I played a game against orcs. I've played with orcs a few times, but I've never played against orcs. And I love the orcs. They play very honest Warhammer. It's just a bunch of boys who want to shoot and want to punch. They're a little tricky on the WoG turn, but other than that, it's fun to play against the orcs. I decided to play my Nekrons because I'm a little sick of playing Space Marines in 10th edition. Space Marines are really expensive points-wise and not particularly survivable. And that is one thing, a trap I fall into all the time is playing too aggressively because I'm Black Templar and it feels like you need to be aggressive. It's not at all hard to kill Space Marines, not even a little bit. And as soon as your units start to drop, the whole game plan starts to fall apart. But I was playing my Nekrons. I got a Star Shatter Arsenal detachment list from Trevi over at Tactical Tortoise's How to Get Started with Nekrons. He put together a really nice kind of defensive beginner Nekron army, and that's what I need. I need a beginner army. And so I put this force together. The only thing I was missing is I didn't have 2 Doomsday Arcs. That is the biggest, toughest vehicle you can get for the Nekrons, besides the Monolith, but they're really good. They shoot like a truck. And they're really survivable with a really good invuln save, a lot of wounds, and some Nekron reanimation shenanigans. So I didn't have those ready for the tournament, although I'm getting them ready because I'm gonna play this list more. And so right now I'm putting them together on my painting table. Holy cow, if anyone is a Nekron player and you've put together a Ghost Arc or a Doomsday Arc, it is a project. Those guys are 8 inches long, and all of those ribs and all of the little gubbins and things that go on the Nekron vehicles. It's a bit of a challenge, but the other big things that I was running in my list, it's not a Nekron list that I think I would have thought of, but I'm really glad I gave it a try because it was really, really fun. I like bringing warriors. I feel like if you're playing Nekrons, if you're playing any faction, I feel like you should be bringing the generic infantry that is that faction. And for Nekrons, it's the warriors. But warriors are real bad, and there's no point to bringing warriors unless you do what I did. I attached Oricon the Diviner. He is a named cryptek made famous from The Infinite and the Divine, which is a really, really good Nekron novel. But this guy is really interesting because he grants his units a 4-up Feel No Pain, and by Feel No Pain, I mean Invulnerable save, which is still good. 50-50 every time you take damage is excellent. Also, once per game, this guy turns into One Punch Man. Normally, he's very piddly with his attacks. I think it's 2 attacks at strength 6, damage 1. But on the One Punch turn, and I just declare it and it happens, you double the strength, you double the number of attacks, and then every successful wound is a devastating wound. And so all of a sudden, this guy is throwing 6 punches hitting on 2s, strength 12, and every attack that goes through, every wound that goes through is a devastating wound. So he actually throws out almost automatic damage on the turn that he pops off. Also attached to this big 20 brick of warriors and Oricon is another Nekron Lord with the War Scythe. So that's a pretty nice solid melee punch, very safely cushioned inside of a big 20-man blob of unkillable warriors. This was a really, really nice, powerful unit, and every turn I would pick either left or right, and this unit would just kind of slowly lurch onto that no man's land objective and then sit and beg my opponent to try to come to me. And it was really effective. They lasted most of the game, every single one of the games I played. They're not a massive threat, but they can definitely hold their own in melee and a little bit in shooting, because in Star Shatter Arsenal, there is an enhancement that I can put on the Lord That gets me reroll hit rolls of 1, reroll wound rolls of 1, which is not bad even on piddly warrior shooting. And it also does help these characters just punch a little bit stronger. I love this unit. I love that I can bring warriors and actually expect them to do something, and something very Necron-y, which is survive. And if they do die, then they get right back up, because I've got the Resurrection Orb on the Necron Lord, I've got the 4-up invuln from this fella. Like, I got some real juice going in this squad. The other big damage dealer in my list is a squad of Canoptic Wraiths with the Technomancer. Technomancer attached to the Wraiths is a classic thing to do. It is fantastic. It gives the Wraiths a 5-up Feel No Pain in addition to their 4-up Invulnerable save. Just giant number of wounds. Wraiths are probably just one of the best things in the Necron Codex. They actually went down weirdly in the last points balance, which they probably shouldn't have, but it's a really good squad. In every game, I would kind of rush the Wraiths out to stop my opponents from getting onto some objectives and just to cause some havoc, and they did every single game. They definitely died every single game, but it took some real time for them to die. The Wraiths are really, really fun. And another spicy thing that I wouldn't have thought of is to bring in some Scarab Swarm bases, because I have 2 Cryptechs in my army, the Necron Wizard, I have Oricon, and I have the Technomancer attached to the Wraiths. And so if I have Scarab Swarms nearby those guys, they actually do have Objective Control 1, and which, lets them actually be able to do stuff on objectives, but also they're just little 40-point nothing squads with kind of a lot of wounds, 12 wounds apiece. Even at toughness 2, that's still something. And my opponents never wanted to deal with them, because why would you? They're nothing. But because they're so nothing, but they were there, they actually did a surprising amount of work. I was able to move block my opponent just by having these guys around. They're on big 40mm bases. I was able to add more objective control to the objectives that I was trying to stand on. I was able to just throw them at stuff and then use the self-destruct feature to do D3 mortal wounds. Like, they were really, really fun to have, and they gave me options every game that ordinarily I'd be like, okay, the Wraiths have to do everything. They have to hold my opponent back, they have to do some damage, they have to get where they need to go, they have to survive. But all of a sudden, having a little bit of that work offloaded onto this little Scarab squad was great. And I also had a squad over by Oricon, and they were doing a very similar thing. Just, I've got a big 20 blob warriors, and then I can keep that wall of Necron-ness going with just 3 more Scarab Swarm bases. It was really, really helpful. And honestly, I'm almost thinking of adding another Scarab Swarm base. That's a lot of Scarab Swarm bases, but it's 120 points for 3 squads. I don't know, I'll have to play with it a little bit more. One thing that wasn't super awesome with my Necron list is the Scorpek Destroyers. They're a newer Necron unit for, they came out in 8th edition, or was it? No, it must have been 9th edition. No, it was probably 8th edition, because 9th edition, no, it was 9th edition. It doesn't matter, but these guys, I can't get them to be good. Like, they're kind of just Space Marines, but on big ol' 50mm bases. I was kind of keeping them by Oricon in order to, if something charges Oricon, they can kind of sweep in and help clean them up. But every time they would poke their heads out, they would all just die because they're 3-up save, 3 wounds with no shenanigans going on. So everything would just wipe this squad. I might keep playing with them just to see what else I can do. And I had the Scorpek Lord attached, and Scorpek Lord is just good, but he doesn't throw all that many good quality punches. And honestly, the Scorpeks don't really either, even though they're a big meaty combat unit. I didn't find them very useful or helpful, and so I might, and they're kind of a lot of points, so I might play around with those guys a little bit. But one thing that was super helpful was I got to bring one of my favorite units. Because I didn't have those Ghost Arcs, I had like 600 points to play around with, and so I brought a lot of nonsense. But one of those nonsenses is 2 squads of Necron Destroyers, Locust Destroyers, one of my favorite units in all of Warhammer 40k, one of the first 40k things I ever bought. And they performed beautifully. I left them in strategic reserve for all 3 games, and then they would come on over the course of the game, and they performed really, really well, because I would kind of wait for my opponent's army to be a little bit whittled down, or at least for my opponent to make the decisions of what he wants his army to be doing. And then I could just kind of mess with that plan by bringing in these mounted Necron units and then just shooting the pants off of them, because they synergize really well with Star Shatter Arsenal. A lot of the enhancements focus around vehicles and mounted units, and for some reason, destroyers are mounted. And so these guys were getting +1 to their shots on enemies on objective. I was being able to use a lot of the stratagems on them. So if they're shooting at the closest enemy unit, they get to reroll the hit roll. All of a sudden, these guys were really doing some work. They can move pretty fast at 8 inches, or maybe it's 10 inches. I think it's 8 inches. They're not amazing. They're 90 points, but they were actually doing a serious amount of work for me, which was so much fun because I love these guys and I've taken them in so many games where they've done nothing. But all of a sudden, just using them a little bit more defensively, using them a little bit more smartly, they were actually doing some stuff. And speaking of models doing some stuff, this is not the only new Necron unit that I feverishly tried to paint up in time for the RTT. I got a Hexmark destroyer. This guy has a little less paint on him than Oricon, but he's got enough. This guy, I wasn't super jazzed when I saw the model came out originally. I was also a little sad that my classic destroyers, the Locust destroyers, were now not the only destroyer. This guy is also a destroyer, and I felt like his squirt gun arms were a little bit lame. But now that I have the model and I've built it, I kinda like him a lot more. And now that I've played 3 games with this guy, I like him a lot more because he is kind of piddly and he doesn't do a ton, but he gets to do a lot. With those pistols, he's got 6 arms, so he gets 6 shots of pretty good pistol shooting, but also he can free Overwatch, and he can free shoot back if something standing nearby to him gets shot, then he can make a shot at the thing that shot. So this guy actually, even though he probably only gets 1 or 2 opportunities to shoot, and that's not great with his kind of low number of attacks, he actually ends up shooting way more than you'd think, because he'll probably shoot in my turn, and then he'll probably shoot in my opponent's turn, and then he'll shoot again in my turn, and then maybe a couple of times because of that Overwatch. And so he's just kind of a nice speed bump. What I used him for is I attached the enhancement that gives -1 damage to a nearby Necron vehicle. I gave it to a Doom, no, not a Doom. Everything in Necrons is Doom. A Canoptech Doomstalker, which is kind of like 50% of a Doomsday arc, but having that guy tooled up, standing in the middle of the board, with reanimation protocols, with a 4-up invulnerable save, with -1 to oncoming damage, that I was able to get him to survive at least 1 round of my opponent's shooting every single game. And a lot of that was due to this little fella. This guy also has Deep Strike, but I didn't use him, I just started him on the board. But potentially, I might play around with a second one of these in Strategic Reserve. Depending on what I ended up doing with those Scarpback Destroyers, I might just add another guy, but I don't know, he died pretty quickly when my opponent actually got within 12 inches of him when was allowed to shoot at him. But for the most part, he survived all my games, and he did a very pleasant amount of work. I am very happy with my RTT results. My first game was against the Thousand Suns, and I got hit with so many mortal wounds. But it was still a pretty good game. I killed a Demon Prince. Then in my second game with Orcs, this was the close game, and it was really fun. My big Necron blob owned the right side or the left side of the board, and then his big Flashgit squad, the Flashgit squad owned the right side of the board. And then we just kind of fought a little bit in the middle, and that's all that happened that game, but it was glorious. And then my last game was against New Codex Death Guard. Holy cow, New Codex Death Guard is intense. Toughness 6 Plague Marines and toughness 7 Terminators with 5-up on everything is brutal. But I still managed to make something happen during that game, but I came close to getting tabled. But I didn't get tabled every single time, like what happens when I play my Space Marines. So I'm feeling really jazzed about my Necrons. I am actively painting up some of the new units that I want to add to my force that I'm enjoying playing with. Got the Doomsday arcs working, and as much as I love the Necron Destroyers, there's another thing that I kind of secretly love, but I've never owned, and that is Praetorian Guard. No, Praetorian Guard is an Imperial Guard unit. I have the Triarch Praetorians. This is a weird little infantry unit that has movement 10 and a decent number of bad punches and shots, but they also have deep strike and good movement. And it might be something that could be really valuable in my Necron army, especially this list that I'm running the way I run it. So I might put together a few squads of those and try playing with swapping them for the Necron destroyers. And maybe every other game, like I'll try them and then I'll try the destroyers and I'll just see which one works better. But it's fun. I feel like I'm making decisions. I'm trying things out. I'm learning things. I feel like I very often don't learn things in my games of 40K because I just get stomped so hard, but I didn't get stomped that hard. And so I actually got to try things out and learn a little bit about the game. I'm feeling very energized about Warhammer 40K, but that is not the only game I've been into. I've also been working a little bit on my Star Wars Legion army. And we got some very interesting Star Warsy kind of stuff available at EonsOfBattle.com. EonsOfBattle.com is the place to find our merch, like the Nick and Jay dice. We've got basing toppers and bits, we've got wet pallets, and we just restocked on waterslide decals. It is also the best way to support us doing what we do with a membership. Each month, members get a credit they can use on our new monthly train packs or any previous pack we have ever made. This month, we have the Faraway Galaxy Bundle, a battlefield's worth of sci-fi buildings with a clever removable door and roof system for easy access. These buildings print easy and are perfect for cutting a battlefield into a dangerous urban maze. There's also plenty of cargo containers and barricades, including the XT6 cargo sled for moving all of these accessories around the war zone. This set is perfect for quickly setting up a thematic battlefield in any system, planet, or moon. This set will be on EonsOfBattle.com for the month of July, and then it'll be gone. If any of you guys have been playing Warhammer 40,000 10th edition, especially if you've been jumping armies like I have, let me know in the comments below. Are you finding like some armies that you don't enjoy playing or you find are not matching your playstyle, but other armies you do? Because I definitely feel like maybe I'm a little bit over Space Marines right now, but I'm having so much fun with my Nekrons. And honestly, 10th edition almost feels like a different game with an army that can actually survive a little bit. But I've not felt the same thing with my Space Marines or my Tyranids or really my Orcs or anything else I've tried. Death Guard, actually, I played a couple games with Death Guard and they seem pretty fun. They just got a new codex. But I'm working on my Necrons. I'm doing my Necrons right now, and that's what I'm gonna be sticking with. Thanks for watching.